Hey everybody, today I'd like to talk about the stage 3 personal tax cut. So in under 2 weeks time, Treasurer Grim Jim is going to drop his budget, and the usual suspects on the left and the hard left, the ABC and various think tanks are basically trying to make the government either cancel or greatly reduce these stage 3, tax cuts, because, these are people that have nothing but envy in their blood. And I'd like to put some truth into what they are and what they mean by actually looking at some hard data. So we're going to spend a bit of time just going through that now, because I don't think, again, like most things, the mainstream media doesn't cover it properly. And to most people, it's a bit of mathematics and that sort of stuff. It's all too hard to take in, but it's actually fairly simple. So we'll just spend a little bit of time going through what they are and how they all came about. So just so we can give the bit of the history, it was back in 2018, 2019, the then Australian Parliament, that was, Scott Morrison, so the LNP, they were in power and they passed an income tax package. And then, of course, we had the election last year, and then opposition leader Anthony Albanese said no, Labor would, maintain the package. And then they went to the vote, and of course they won government, and they've pledged to maintain the package. But ever since then, all these forces have been pecking on them to, get rid of them and or greatly reduce them, because, again, as I said in my intro here, they're just absolutely paranoid about this myth that, only the wealthy are going to really, really benefit about them. So what exactly is the stage 3 tax cuts? Well, they're due to kick in on the 1st of July in 2024. And see, stage 3 of these tax cuts abolishes the 37% marginal tax bracket completely and lowers the 32.5% marginal tax rate to 30%. It also raises the threshold for the 45% marginal tax rate, which means everyone earning between $45,000 and $200,000 will pay the same 30% marginal tax rate. Seems fair. It's basically saying we've got all these brackets now and we're just going to consolidate it and make it a bit fairer. So before I just go and look at some of the hard numbers, let's just, remind ourselves just about, the tax take that actually happens in Australia. And just check out this particular graph. Australians have never been taxed more in their lives. You can see here, going back to the 2012-2013 period all the way to the 21-22 period, other than one little bump coming into 19 and 20, and that would have been just when we had the COVID outbreak in March 2020, the amount of taxation revenue has been going up and up and up. And in fact, Australians are paying a record amount of taxation. Now, we have 3 tiers of government in Australia. For those that don't know, and for those that are watching from other jurisdictions, we obviously have the Commonwealth, we have states, and then we have local governments. Only the Commonwealth has true taxation powers. The state governments have the ability to, levy things such as stamp duty and fines and things of that nature, and then local governments have, their rates and fines and other things too. But the majority of the tax we pay comes from the form of the federal government. And in 2021, 2022, basically the federal government took in $550 billion out of a total take of about $683 billion, I should say. So you can just see again on that graph, we're, as Australians, we're paying even more and more tax. Now, I've got this other particular chart that I just always get blown away from it, and this goes back only as far back as the 2019-2020 income year. This is from the ATO website, and you can see the two graphs here. We've got number of individuals and then the net tax. So let's just focus on the first one here, number of individuals. And it shows you there that those who earn less than 18,200 represent just shy of 18%. And then we have those between 18,237, it's about 21%. And then the big meat in the sandwich are those people who earn between 37 and 90, that's 41%. And those that then in between 90 and 180, that stands at 16.5. And then as you know, the left like to say, the top end of town, you know, they're 180 who earn 180,000 or more, just represent basically like 3.5% of the take. So they're the number of individuals measured in percentage terms. We won't worry about raw actual numbers. You get where most of the people fall in what brackets. Now let's look at what the net tax is. This is what they pay. And again, this is just taking it in a very generic net approach. It's just gross income applied to the personal income scales, not worrying about other deductions and other bits and pieces. You know, this is where the raw data comes in. So those who earn less than, or 18,200 or less, it says less than 1%. In reality, it's zero because their tax bracket is zero. Those earning between 18,200 and 37,000, you know, 1.7%. So, you know, the poor end of the scale. Those between 37 and 90,000, they're about 30%. And those between 90 and 180, they're 37. And again, the top end of town, they who earn over $180,000, they pay nearly 32% of the tax. So let's just always remember that. Those who are making the money and paying the tax are paying the fucking tax, okay? Let's not be under any illusion. And that amount of people is a very, very small number of people that do it. And yet we have people constantly wanting to bash over their head, oh, these are always measures that help out the rich. It's never helping out the poor person or anybody else, which is complete and utter bullshit, as we'll now go through and have a look at some actual math. So let's bring up here a table form of what the current tax thresholds are right now for 22-23, and then going into the new ones, assuming, of course, Labor doesn't renege on all this and make changes, which I think they won't do, because there's a few things to go and shave on the edges, things like, you know, superannuations, and change taxation levels coming into, say, you know, if you've got more than $3 million, we're going to change the concessional tax on that from 15 to 30, etc., etc. You know, you can sort of get away with it, but breaking basically a fundamental promise that you were going to maintain the stage 3 tax cuts, I just think would just be crazy. They'd be nuts to do it, and Albo's not a dummy. So these are going to happen, contrary to what the ABC say and other lefty think tanks. So let's just go back to the table. So we can see here at the moment we have essentially 5 categories at the moment. So you pay no tax if you earn between 0 and 18,200. You pay 19% tax between 18,200 and 45,000. So that bracket had moved, because remember, this is stage 3. So we've already had stages 1 and 2 roll through successfully, and hence we have seen the brackets expand. At the 32.5% level, 45,000 to 120. Is that bracket. At 37% comes in between 120 and 180, and then those who earn over 180,000 pay 45 cents on the dollar. And for those that don't understand how it works, if you're somebody who earns, you know, 200 grand, well, you're going to pay the tax based on the progression of the scale. So you pay, you know, the first 18,200, they're not paying tax, but then they pay their share of tax between the 18,200 to the 45, but the same, then they pay the tax between the 45 and the 120, between the 120 to the 180, and then it's only when they get, say, over 180,000, so if they're 20 grand over, then that 20 grand is only subject to that 45. So then when we work out an effective tax rate, then they're going to be a little bit lower, but they pay their share. So in 2024, 1st of July 2024, when it becomes law, we're going to go to these schedules. Same thing. If you earn less than 18,200, you pay no tax. If you earn between 18,200 and 45,000, no change to the tax rate, stays at 19%. If, however, you earn between 45,000 and 200,000, you're only going to pay 30 cents. So it's nearly like basically saying you're going to pay $1 out of 3. And that's, I think, pretty fair. And then it's only if you're on 200,000 or more where you're going to pay 45% or more. So let's now put this into some actual hard data so you can just get a feel for where the numbers are, and I can come back to why the people who are against it are just completely crazy on that front. It's just, again, people pushing envy on the fact that they go, why should someone who earns a lot of money get such a big tax cut? It's because they've earned a lot more, and you'll see in a moment their percentage of tax is actually quite large compared to people lower on the bloody ladder. They're paying more than enough of their fair share. But the numbers is what really brings it up. So let's look at this particular table here. I know there's a bit to look at, and I've got here 6 particular taxpayers noted here. So let's start off with Carmen. She earns $18,000. Under the current tax scale, she would pay no tax. Therefore, she has an effective tax rate of 0. Andy, he earns 44 grand. Under the current tax schedules, personal tax schedules, would pay $4,900 in tax, which is effectively a tax rate of about 11%. Monique earns $115,000. She would be up for $27,800 tax approximately, or about 24%. Indy earns $175,000. Indy would be paying just shy of $50,000 in tax, or just shy of or near 28.5% effective tax rate. Archie earns $250 grand. They would be paying $83,000 in tax, which means their effective tax rate would be around about 33%. And lastly, we've got the big kahuna. They're earning $500,000, and their tax payable is $195,000, which represents an effective tax rate of just shy of 40%. Now we take those same incomes and we now apply them to the stage 3 tax rates, which we just described, and we went from 5 categories, to 4 categories. Again, Carmen on 18 grand pays no tax, so no change, nothing happens. Andy, who is on 44,000, will see no change also, because it stays at the effective rate of 19% in that tax bracket, so no change there. Now, Monique, who earns 115,000, will actually see their tax go down from $27,842 to $26,092. So that represents a tax saving of approximately $1,750 if you're in that particular, if you're at 115 grand. It means Monique now under the new schedule would have an effective tax rate of about 22.69%. Indy, who's on 175,000, will see their current tax take of $49,817 fall to $44,092. That represents a tax saving of $5,725, which is a nice amount of money. We see Archie, who's on $250,000. They're currently paying $83,167 in personal income tax. That, under stage 3, would mean their tax would fall to $74,092. That represents the maximum saving of $9,075. Because you can see here that the big kahuna, who is getting $500,000, who earns $500,000, is paying tax on the current schedules at $195,667. We'll see their tax drop to $186,592. Represents that same saving of $9,075. But just keep in mind now, and you look at the second last column that we've got here, look at the effective tax rates that these people are on. If we take Monique, she's on an effective tax rate there of 22.69%. We take Indy on an effective tax rate of 25.2%. We take Archie, 29.6%, and we take Big Kahuna on 37%. So you can see that's where there actually falls with their effective rates. Now, this is where I really get annoyed, because this is where the left just will not give up on this. So let's now focus on where it really matters here. Let's just drill down on the actual numbers, because what the left does is they look at that saving, that last column I had up there, and simply go, well, why should someone who's earning $500,000 be given a $9,075 tax cut? That's just not fair. Why are we helping them? And then, of course, they spin it even more by going, oh, that's going to benefit more men than women. I mean, they just look for every sort of bullshit reason to try and, convince people that, oh, it's not good. We shouldn't do that. We should keep taxes really high because we've got to do that. When the actual reality, those who are earning a lot of money are paying a lot of tax. They don't get a free lunch at all. Yes, these stage threes reduce it. What's wrong with that? They're entitled to a reduction like anybody else in something that's happening. If the tax system is making a shift, and you've got to remember, in our country, we are spending way too much focus on our tax take on personal income taxes. We need a bigger conversation in this country about making sure we get taxation revenue from other sources, namely like the GST, which is currently at 10%. In my opinion, in time that should go to 15 and apply to fucking everything. That would be a much better take. But no, we won't sort of go to those sort of places. But I digress. Let's just go back to this. Even under the stage 3 tax cuts, Big Kahuna still pays over 38x more income tax than Andy, who's on 44 grand. In other words, Big Kahuna, on this example, is paying $186,000 in tax versus Andy's $4,902. How does anyone therefore think that someone in the top end of town is getting a free lunch? They're nearly paying 190 fucking grand in tax. In other words, you need 38 Andys to make up one of these Big Kahunas. And if we keep going on the way we are, these people who are the Big Kahunas, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to leave. Further, Big Kahuna still pays over 7x more income tax than Monique. Monique, in our bracket, in our example, is earning $115,000. Again, Big Kahuna on his 500 grand is paying $186,592 versus Monique's $26,092. Big Kahuna still pays over 4x more tax than Indy, and Indy earns $175,000. Again, $186,592 versus $44,000. And then Big Kahuna still pays 2.5 times more than Archie. And Archie earns, on our example, $250,000. Again, $186,000 tax is what Big Kahuna pays versus Archie's $74,000. The math does not lie. The people who are at the top end pay a big amount of money. It's called the quantum amount. If it's okay for the hard left to go, oh, look on the dollar saving of what you get from a tax return, but we'll just ignore the actual total amount they pay, they can't have it both ways. So this is why it's important to have this comparison firmly there so people understand, regardless of where you fit in these tax brackets, that people who are earning more, and that's what happens as part of the world, there are people who do, they still pay a very, very high proportion of their incomes in personal tax, a lot more than others, and it's just been demonstrated right here. And again, I'm keeping the numbers as general as possible. Obviously, there are other miscellaneous things people do to their taxes to either have them, if they earn more money through capital gains, and they pay extra taxes there, and of course, there's deductions and other things, but just taking raw numbers of someone who's, for argument's sake, there's India again, earns $175,000 under stage 3 tax cuts. When they come in, their tax is going to be $44,000, and that's what it is. And yes, they get a $5,725 saving. So let me just keep going further, just to further illustrate the magnification of what people actually pay when they're at the top end of town. Even under stage 3 tax cuts, Archie, who in my example was the second biggest theoretical taxpayer in this table, still pays 15 times more income tax than Andy, who's on 44 grand. So Archie is paying $74,092 versus Andy's $4,902. Archie is 2.8 times, nearly 3 times, pays more income tax than Monique, and you can see pays 1.7 times more income tax than Indy. So the flow on effect is there the higher you are up. And then finally, just to come in, let's just go, to where Indy was on the tax bracket of 175,000. Indy on that base, so that's in that still high end, that's still a lot of money to earn, 175 grand, is still paying 9 times more tax than Andy, who's on 44 grand. 44,000 versus 4,900, or is paying 1.7 times more than Monique, 44,000 tax versus 26,000 tax. Again, we need to stop and make sense of what we're doing or what's coming, the reason of these taxes. Now, I absolutely know that the current government has basically said that the low to middle income tax offset has been canned, and that was worth $1,500. And that was probably something that went up to around 10 million possible taxpayers. It was basically something that applied to people in the bracket between 48 and I believe 126,000. And remember, that's a tax offset. It's not to be confused with what the income tax brackets are, what they are for paying your income tax. So we're arguing just on these alone, not on offsets that governments might give and take from time to time, or other rebates they might give from time to time. Because you've got like family benefit A, which I understand comes in on the basis of helping out if you've got children, and family benefit B to help out if you're a single parent and those sort of things. And they all have cut-offs, and that's fine. I have no problem with our tax system that can have special little directed means. That's just part of who we are. We're not some shithouse backwater, are we? This is Australia. But just on the sheer size of these new tax brackets coming into place, this argument that we can't give it to the top end of town is, as you've seen here for the figures I've demonstrated, is complete and utter bullshit. Again, someone who's earning $500,000 is going to pay 38 times more tax than someone who's earning just 44 grand. In other words, using the raw numbers on the example I gave, someone earning $500,000 will pay $186,592 tax, gives them the effective tax rate of 37 cents. So effectively over $1 out of 3 is always tax out of their pocket, versus someone who's on 44 grand and they're only going to be paying $4,900 tax, and that's 11% on that basis. And what they worry about is, that poor person who's on the 44 grand didn't get a tax cut. Well, I can pretty much assure you the person who's on that 44 grand bracket is probably getting family A and probably family B. And I would not be surprised, Labor being Labor, will just rename the low to medium income tax offset as something else and reintroduce that as well, because they're politically mindful about pissing off 10 million people who are going to lose, in theory, well, not in theory, they are, who are going to lose, a $1,500, direct tax credit off their tax returns. But let's not kid ourselves. The people who are earning the big amounts of dough are paying a shitload of tax. Let's make sure we are all on that agreed page and that sort of stuff. So it's been something that I just really get annoyed about. I just, you read it, you hear it on the news, people don't talk about it properly. It just really drives me insane that, we just don't have the people who should be out there communicating things properly and telling people. And you know what? It makes you strive. If you work harder, you get a bigger pay. You work smarter or go and re-educate or get a better degree, you'll get a better job, and then in time you can earn. We can all have those opportunities. That's the beauty about living in Australia. Everyone that comes to this country or was born in this country has got an opportunity to really do to whatever they want to go to. It's the limits are you. If you want to limit yourself, well, that's where you limit. If you want to strive and try your guts out and set up a business and work hard and take a few risks, at the end of the day, the payoff's there. And we do have, our tax system is a progressive tax system. As you earn more, you pay more. But please, all these people whinging about, oh, we can't, let's stop doing that. Let's not have the tax cuts. The money we could save and redeploy elsewhere. Well, that's another problem with government. See, government is wasting literally billions of dollars in fraud, mainly in the NDIS. And fortunately, they're going to start having a proper review on that. But if we don't start looking at our expenditures, the solution is not to keep taxing more and more people or taking away promises of giving them tax relief. And you've got to remember, everyone at the moment is affected by inflation. Inflation today came in for the March quarter at 7% per annum. That's good. It's down from when it was officially in the December quarter. I think it was about 7.8%. But people need to understand, yes, you have your taxation as I've described, but if we don't get inflation under control, that's a form of taxation that hits everybody. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, or whatever, because that $1 today will be 7% less in 12 months' time, because that's what happens to the cost of goods and services, if not more. So, we've got a lot of challenges, to keep going ahead. Anyway, this has been a pretty big, long rant. I think it's important. Hopefully, if you like what I've had to say, smash that like button. If you haven't, please subscribe. Feel free to flick this across to your mates and your friends. And until next time, and I'm going to leave the final word to the late Kerry Packer, who had this to say about taxation. But until then, take it easy. Over to you, Kerry.
With minimising tax, I don't know anybody who doesn't minimise their tax.
And that you were doing so in ways that were contrary to the spirit of the law.
Well, I just got through telling you what I thought about that. I am not evading tax in any way, shape or form. Now, of course I am minimising my tax, and if anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax, they want their heads ripped. Because as a government, I can tell you, you're not spending it that well that we should be donating extra.